I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Remember the brave little engine? He taught us that if you think you can do something, you probably can. And if you don't think that you can do something, if you think you can't, well, then you probably just won't be able to. This is an important lesson for our lives. If we're going to achieve, if we're going to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish, we have to have confidence in ourselves to even try. We have to say, I think I can. And it's not until you know that you can that you're really going to do your best. Do you think Jesus ever thought that he couldn't do something? Jesus knew with every enemy of ours that he faced that he could defeat them. He knew that he could. Jesus had a can-do attitude. And this colored all of the events that we see in his life in the Gospels. We see this confidence and authority of Jesus. Whether he was performing a miracle or declaring with his wisdom important truths from God that people needed to hear, Jesus knew that he could do it. But do you know that Jesus can do it? You can have confidence in yourself to accomplish the goals you want to accomplish. But do you have complete confidence that Jesus can do what he has promised to do? This is a large part of our task as believers, still remaining here on earth, is to trust in Jesus and have complete confidence for the big things, for the little things, for everything that he has promised to do for us. And through today's sermon, I hope that you will have an even fuller and more complete confidence as we explore what Jesus can do, as he faced probably our greatest enemy, death, when a good friend of his, Lazarus, died. In the verses before the ones that we're going to study today, Jesus heard that his friend Lazarus had died. Jesus wasn't nearby. He was multiple days' walk away from Lazarus and Lazarus' home when he heard the news. But Jesus was casual about the whole thing. Even though he knew that he should go there and help Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, he spent a couple days in the town he was still at to teach there before he went to Bethany, the home of Lazarus. Jesus was casual about the whole thing because he had that can-do attitude. He knew what he was going to do. But then it came time for him to show up in the village of Bethany and to help the people there. Verse 17, when Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away. Many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. As soon as Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary remained seated in the house. My best friend growing up had twin sisters, and these twin sisters looked exactly alike. Because I spent a lot of time with that family, him being my best friend, I was one of the few people who could tell them apart. They looked almost completely identical, but they always made different choices. They had very different personalities. It's the same thing with these sisters, Mary and Martha. They show up several times in the Gospels, but each time they seem to make different choices than each other. So in this moment, Mary, hearing that Jesus came to town, decided to continue mourning the loss of her brother in her home. But Martha immediately ran to Jesus. Verse 21, then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Yet even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. I hope that you see Martha's faith in these verses. She wasn't complaining. She was saying, Jesus, had you been here, I know that you could have stopped Lazarus from dying. And even though Lazarus did die, I still believe that you, Jesus, have this amazing communion with God the Father. Even now, Jesus, I know that whatever you ask from God, he will give you. Even though my brother just died, I still believe that. Even though the circumstances in her life had changed, her conviction about who Jesus was hadn't. And then Jesus spoke to her in her grief. Verse 23, your brother will rise again, Jesus told her. Martha had come to Jesus with 990 pounds of trust. And then Jesus pushes her here a little bit further. Give me 1,000, he says. He makes an amazing promise here that Lazarus would rise again. Could Martha believe it? Martha said, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. She said, sure, Lazarus will rise again. But we're talking about the resurrection on the last day, not this day, right? Jesus speaks some of the most profound words you'll ever hear Jesus speak. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die, ever. Do you believe this? Jesus calls himself the resurrection and the life. And if that sounds kind of abstract, well, look at how Jesus defines it. In the verses that were just after, he said, I am the resurrection and the life. At the end of verse 25, he said, the one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. That's resurrection. But then look at verse 26. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die, ever. What Jesus is saying is, those who believe in him have eternal life now. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Do you know what he's talking about? He's talking about what amazing gift he would give at the end of his life. That he would go to the cross. That his sufferings will be our salvation. That his punishment will be our righteousness. That he would do the work of saving us so that you don't earn your salvation. Even after you come to faith, you don't earn God's favor. You simply believe. And he gives you resurrection and he gives you life now and forever. That's why Jesus asked Martha, do you believe this? Because this is a matter of faith. And Jesus wanted big faith from Martha in this moment, in spite of her grief. This was turning out to be quite a big day for Martha. Lazarus had died just a few days earlier. And then Jesus came to town, which was a big deal. And then she got to run to Jesus and meet him and talk with him. And he was saying these amazing words. And in spite of all that going on in her life, I think she was starting to get it. Look at the next verses. Yes, Lord, she told him, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who comes into the world. Martha's view of Jesus was expanding. He was getting bigger and better and more awesome as he spoke to her. What faith she had was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's why Jesus came. To help her see that he could do anything. That he could help her even in this time of grief. So her expanding trust in Jesus made him happy. So happy. But in our next verses, we're going to see Jesus go through a couple other emotions that bring us closer to our main point for today. Verse 28. Having said this, she went back and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and is calling for you. As soon as she heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw that Mary got up quickly and went out. So they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to cry there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and told him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." She echoes the words of Martha here. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. Again, this is not a complaint, but actually a statement of trust on her part, saying that she knew that Jesus still has this amazing power, even though something bad happened in her life. But there's something else going on here. Jesus picked up on something going on in Mary and in the people who were around her. Look at what happened next. When Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews who had come with her crying, he was angry in his spirit and deeply moved. "Where have you put him?" he asked. "Lord," they told him, "come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Couldn't he who opened the blind man's eyes also have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, angry in himself again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. It says 2 times in those verses that Jesus got angry. Now, some Bible translations, they won't put it as Jesus got angry. They'll just say something a little more general, like Jesus was deeply moved. But the word that this comes from is more specific than that. It's talking about anger, the kind that makes your nose scrunch up because you're so angry. Jesus got angry. Why? Was it because Lazarus died? No. That made Jesus sad, as he did the one thing that is so powerful for us when we are sad. You can know that Jesus up in heaven, as you are struggling through something, he cries with you. Jesus weeps with you. But Jesus also got angry. Why? It was because of what was going on in the hearts of the people who were grieving that day. You can tell by what they said. They were saying, Jesus was able to cure the blind man weeks ago because he can. But Jesus couldn't do anything to save Lazarus from death because apparently he can't. They knew about the other miracles of Jesus that he had been performing. But that's where their trust stopped. They believed that Jesus could do this and this and this and this, but not that. They thought there were some things that Jesus can do, and other things that he can't. A few weeks ago, my son Boaz started doing something new. He would stand a few steps up from the bottom of a flight of stairs with me at the bottom. And then he would just jump. I didn't have my arms out. I wasn't assuring him over and over that I would catch him. No, he didn't need that. He would just jump. Why? Because he trusts me. He trusts me as his dad. He trusts me completely. He trusts me even in new situations with new dangers where we haven't talked everything through. Even in those situations, he still trusts me. Jesus is standing at the bottom of a flight of stairs with you a few steps up. And he's got a smile on his face because he wants you to trust him. Trust him completely. Trust him for everything. But you and I have this tendency to trust in Jesus for some things and not for others. We actually put limits on Jesus. We trust Jesus for this and for this and for this, but not for that. Not for that. Friends, what's your that? What have you started to doubt that Jesus can do? What stairs are you standing on that you're afraid to jump off of because you don't think that Jesus can help. You trust in Jesus for this and for this and for this, but you don't trust in him for that because you've fallen for one of these. Jesus can't fix my marriage. Jesus can't help me forgive myself for that one thing I did. Jesus can't give me joy deeper than my pain. Jesus can't make me a more confident person. Jesus can't keep my kids on the straight and narrow. Jesus can't help rescue that one person in my family that I keep praying for that they would come to faith. Jesus can't get my finances in order. Jesus can't help people who are living in that lifestyle. Jesus can't make me happy. Jesus can't give me as much peace as alcohol can. Jesus can't give me the approval I'm looking for, so I'm going to search for it in my career and my long work hours. Jesus can't satisfy me with the spouse that he's given me. Jesus can't bring justice to someone who's hurt me, so I'm going to hurt them with my anger and my bitterness and my hate. Jesus can't help someone as dumb as me. Jesus can't care about all of my prayers. Friends, what's your that? Do you see the power that your that has? We start to trust in Jesus less for our that. And then we trust in Jesus less as a whole person. Do you know who loves that? Satan. Satan wants you to trust in Jesus a little bit less for your that. And then another that. And then another that. Until you see Jesus as so small as you look down the flight of stairs. He's so small that you can't trust him to catch you because you think he might fail you. That's what Jesus saw that day that made him angry. The people thought that he could do this and this and this, but when Jesus faced against the enemy that is death, it seemed as though he had finally met his match. Was finally facing an enemy that was too big for him in their eyes. That's what Jesus sees in us. You see, Jesus can't makes Jesus angry. But look at what Jesus did in his anger. Remove the stone, Jesus said. But because of the crowd standing here, I said this, so they may believe you sent me. After he said this, he shouted with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! Friends, what's your that? Does it have anything on death? Because look at what happened when Jesus told a dead man to come out of his tomb. The dead man came out, bound hand and foot with linen strips, and with his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, loose or untie him and let him go. Therefore, many of the Jews who came to Mary and saw what he did believed in him. What happened to their doubt? Jesus defeated it. Jesus looked unflinchingly into the face of their doubt, and he delivered the 1-2 punch that this world has been feeling ever since. Dead Lazarus came out. Jesus defeated death. Death had nothing on Jesus. And why did he do it? Because the people there that day, at the beginning of the day, they thought Jesus can't. But by the end of the day, Mary, Martha, and all their friends knew that Jesus can. And that made Jesus happy. Jesus can't makes Jesus angry. But Jesus can doesn't. Because Jesus can makes Satan angry. Satan has nothing on you when you know that Jesus can do anything. He can't drag you back to despair and hopelessness and fear when you know what Jesus can do in your life. When you see the power he has even over death. When in your prayers you can say, Jesus can. And when that's your attitude every day. Not Jesus can't, but Jesus can. What's your favorite miracle of Jesus? Maybe it's raising Lazarus. Maybe it's the miraculous catch of fish. Maybe it's calming the storm. Maybe it's walking on water. Can I tell you what my favorite miracle of Jesus is? It's when he saw me wandering away from him with my doubts about God. And then he did the one thing that I couldn't. He made me a believer. My friends, for each and every one of you, he has done the same thing. He has turned you from despair to hope. He has made you to trust in his promises. He has taught you to say, Jesus can. And who can keep you in this faith? Jesus can. And he will. So that one day when you are lying on your deathbed, with your friends and family, the body of Christ, weeping for their impending loss, you can know that death has nothing on you because you have heard his voice. He stood before the tomb of your heart and he said, my son, my daughter, come out. Bask in my promises. Trust in me, the resurrection and the life. The one who trusts in him will live even if they die. And the one who believes and trusts in him, even in spite of that, in spite of everything, they will never die. Ever. Do you believe this?